Hello, my friends. I wanted to show you what is in my current pencil pouch. This is the Delfonics Utility Pouch in medium in this beautiful dusty rose, and I have been taking this with me everywhere lately, all around the house, in my backpack, throwing it in a purse, or just carrying it by itself when I'm going out to a coffee shop. It does actually have these two little loops that I realized you could put a chain on or a strap and just have this as a purse if you wanted to. For now, I just have this little charm that has a crown on it because my word of the year is sovereign. But you could really do anything you wanted with this. It could be a sewing pouch. You can actually fit an entire paperback book in here if you wanted to use it as an annotating pouch. There's so many uses for this. And I love this one in particular because I picked this up when I was shopping in Melbourne, Australia last August when I was there to speak. I went to Hobart to speak for the Romance Writers of Australia, but I also spent some time in Sydney and then at the end of the trip went to Melbourne. So shout out to Romance Writers of Australia. Thank you for that once in a lifetime trip. I had the best time and I met so many amazing people. So double shout out to everybody who came out to meet me in Sydney or in Melbourne. But this was the very end of the trip when I had a few amazing ladies met me in Melbourne and we went shopping. We went to a beautiful lunch. We saw all the graffiti in the alleyways that's so beautiful, like really cool artwork. And we went into a lot of fun shops as well as the library there. And one of the stationery shops, I saw this Dusty Rose utility pouch. And I already knew that I love this pouch because I have the navy and white one that my son gave me for Christmas a few years ago, and I have used it so much for years. And so I knew I would love this as well. And what goes inside the interior pocket switches up depending on where I'm going or what I'm using it for at the time, but the outside kind of stays the same. So what I'm going to do is just walk you through each little pouch and talk through my thoughts on how I've set this up. It does have back pouches or pockets that I don't use a lot because it is so full that it would just get to where there's too many things. And I also do have some pins on the front, which the very first time I ever saw a utility pouch, it was just covered in pins. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have so many collection of enamel pins that I'm definitely going to use that. But I didn't put the locking backs on it. And so every time I would put it into my backpack or a purse, the pins would come off and then I'd stick my hand. And then somebody finally said, bless you. I think it was Adrian from Procrastinator said, make sure you get the locking backs, which I didn't even know was a thing. So if you have any kind of enamel pens or bookish pens or other things like that, get the locking backs from Amazon. I'll link them down below. They probably also have them at various stationery stores, but lifesaver for sure. I don't have as many pins on this one. I'll just walk you through them real quick and then we'll go through each individual pouch and I'll talk about what I keep in here and how I use this. So, first we have this cherry martini that says I'm just a girl. I got this from Hello Cleo. They have lots of cute bookish pins. That's the Kindle bag. I actually have a huge collection of pins on the strap for that bag. I love it. Then I have this crescent moon from Simply Gilded. My branding for my Sarra Cannon writer career has a crescent moon on it. So I always love to bring in some of those elements. And I had this one from a box probably 7 years ago or more. The dragonfly is from another paper company that I can't remember right now that came with a watercolor notebook. And then I have the Erin Condren and asterisk on here. This little suitcase is from a bookish luggage collection that came out from Owl Crate several years ago. And this is the one from S.J. Moss's Throne of Glass, which I have on my TBR to read this year. I want to read that whole series. So I threw that on here. Plus, it brings a little bit of purple, which is my branding color. So I thought that was perfect. And then this Books Are Magic pen came from the Fabled Bookshop in Waco, Texas, when I was there with Megan on our writing retreat. The pins, obviously not necessary, but it adds a little bit of flair to the beauty of the bag. Then we have two outer pockets with three little pin size tiny pockets. So in this first one, I tend to just keep whatever I'm currently writing on. So I have a Throne of Thorns book cover on one of those Canon Ivy printer pages because I'm going to use this in my notebook. It's a little sticker. So I've got that queued up for when I'm filling out that new plotting book. I also have my Broken Chapter Society membership card. I have multiples of these kind of around, but it's basically just a heavy plastic card that's perfect for tearing washi tape or just having a sharp, flat edge somewhere. Then in this middle pouch as well as the outer pouch, I have these transparent sticky notes. I have been using so many transparent sticky notes lately when I'm annotating books, when I'm making notes in my plotting sheets. I just have been really loving them. They are basically like plastic sticky notes and they hold up really well, but also they're transparent. So you can see through them if you have notes underneath, or if you're trying to not write on your books, but you want to take notes inside them, it really works well. So I have some clear ones and then I have this slightly dusty, rosy kind of color. But if you want to write on these, it's very difficult to do it with any other type of pen but a permanent marker. So I always have my Sharpie fine point permanent marker here, and it just slides right into one of these little pen pouches here. The second pen pouch has just a pair of tweezers that I use for stickers when I am planning, basically. Then this is one of my prized possessions. This is a Pilot Vanishing Point Decimo pen in tourmaline pink. And this I actually bought from a reseller in Japan. And I love this fountain pen. It is my favorite fountain pen I have ever owned. And it's absolutely beautiful. And it's a limited edition, came out multiple years ago. But I love it. It writes so, so beautifully. And so I keep that in here as well. And I use this for my morning pages pretty much every day lately. Then in the next pocket back, I have this little clip that keeps my journal open. And again, we've got that flower and the moon with the little cat on it, which I thought was cute. I also have pretty much always with me a stash of index cards because I use them for plotting and notes and soon to be Zettelkasten and stuff. And then I just have a rotation of small notebooks. This one's a Lockbee notebook that has dot grid on it, but I also sometimes have just little passport notebooks or other things like that for taking notes. So that pretty much always lives in this front pocket. Then more pens. I don't think I have anything else. Like I don't usually stick any kind of paper back here because I know that it's just going to get messed up with the pens. But I always have a Pentel Energel in here, the needlepoint kind. And then I have just a plain ballpoint pen and a Sharpie pen. So I have the Sharpie fine point permanent marker. And then I also have a Sharpie pen, which is the main pen that I use for my planning in my HB90. Then I also do have this, which is not a pen. It is a little ceramic knife. So it's a cutter basically. So if I want to cut a sticker or I want to cut out like an edge of something or cut washi tape, I've got that there as well. Then I have a couple of mild liners, just a bright pink one and a mint colored one that I use in my annotating. And then finally, I have a multi-pen here. So this is the Uni-Style Fit multi-pen with 5 different colors. So when I'm working on my Shadow Demon Saga or any multiple POV book, I tend to always use the same colors because they're readily available. Pretty much any set of pens is going to have purple, green, blue, red, and then there's also a black in here. So this is the fine point. I think this is a 0.3. And so I use that a lot when I'm plotting. So that's the front outer side. The back outer side, I'm so far keeping nothing in these because I think I probably could keep like a sticker or something flat, but I don't want to put anything like washi tape or anything too bulky. First of all, because it being on the outside, it might fall out, but also because the inside is already, you'll see, so full that there's not a lot of space for anything else. And then there's a Velcro pouch that's full length on the back here as well. And I do just keep a couple things. So I use these stickers from Amazon in a lot of my color coding for my planner. So I also use these for color coding my plot notes. So I've cut down a sheet into basically a third, and I keep that in here. And then I also have this Hobonichi Weeks notebook. I think 2 years ago when I got a Hobonichi Weeks, I also bought the extra little set of 3 notebooks that goes with it, and I never use them. So I have that in here. Haven't used it yet again, but we'll see if it ends up being useful. And then I also have this ruler that I got from Jet Pens that you can do degrees of an angle if you want. You can also have a longer flat edge, or you can make it shorter. I love this little ruler. The only problem is this is a Midori multi-ruler, is that Evie likes to play with it, and I'm terrified she's gonna break it, but it is super cute. So those things, because they're relatively flat, live in the Velcro pouch in the back. So now let's move on to the center of the bag. So it does have this really beautiful pink interior, which I love. And I have lots of stuff in here, like a lot. For one, I have my Canon IV printer. So I keep the Canon IV printer. This is from Planner Kate, I think, fan of snacks and reading. I keep that in here along with a couple extra packs of paper because I do tend to use this Canon IV a lot in my planning and memory keeping and things like that. So that goes in the first pouch. And I guess I should just tell you the structure of the bag is that you have 4 cloth pouches and then everything else is just open. So in the second pouch, I have this little oil sky. This also, don't let idiots ruin your day, came from Planner Kate. They did like a $2 vinyl sale. So this is basically like a mini e-reader. And it's also kind of like a, let's say, an MP3 player. So when I go out writing or I'm planning or I'm out and about in the house, if I have my phone out, I am absolutely going to get stuck on social media, in text messages, looking at comments on something. And I just found that I was just my brain, anytime I was susceptible to distractions, was getting pulled into that. So I saw somebody mention this as an MP3 player because I had bought this cute little pink MP3 player for maybe $15. And I was using that for a while so that I could listen to music without having to actually open my phone, but it really didn't hold a charge well. It was difficult to navigate through the songs, and so I just didn't end up using it. So somebody had mentioned this one as an option. So it's basically like a mini MP3 player that has Android on it. I'm not sure really how well you can see this. I actually saw one of my subscribers, so shout out to Odin, who was using something like this. I don't think it was this exact one, to read A Mirror of Shadows, which just made me so happy because it's so tiny and cute. But I have Spotify on here and I have Audible on here, and then I have Amazon Music and a few other little things like Pinterest, although I don't really use that. And I have my Kindle and my white noise on here so that I can listen to my audiobooks or I can listen to Spotify without having to actually open social media or email or anything else. The only problem that I have with this device is that, I mean, I guess it's for your own good, but it turns itself off. I wish it just went to sleep, but it turns itself off pretty much after just a few minutes. So I need to dig into the settings and see if I can get it to last a little bit longer. But this is super cute, but this is a lot more expensive than the like $15 MP3 player. I think this was more like $50, but it keeps me off social media and that has been helpful. I have been taking this bag upstairs. I also had purchased some alcohol-based markers for Evie and I to color together. And we already had a bunch of coloring books that we had purchased years before. And then I had a Fourth Wing one that we found at Five Below, and she loves dragons. So we have been listening to podcasts together for kids and coloring together. And that has been really nice to be off screens, but also kind of multitasking and listening to stuff. So that lives in here most of the time. And I think I have my headphones in here somewhere too, or I did. We'll have to see if we can find them. Oh, I think I put them on the side. So we'll dig those out in a minute. So I have this here. Then on the other side, I have a couple of these little tins. I got these off of Amazon and we'll just take them one at a time. So inside this first tin, I have a few little things. I have a rose quartz crystal and a little blue agate, I think this is, with the crescent moon. Then I have a little 8-sided die here. So this is like a D&D D8. And if you are in the follow through fix, you already know why I have this in here. But we've been doing this thing for the April challenge with the follow through fix where anytime you're feeling distractible or you need a little bit of novelty or you need a break, you roll the dice and you have a little card that says, okay, a 5 is let's take a walk, or a 5 is get up and get a drink, or whatever it is. So I have this in here. I have a D20 that sits at my desk for this challenge, but the mobile slash portable version of this is only 8 options. So I have that here. Then I have a little staple case. I got this from Daiso. It has a bunch of little staples in it, and then a miniature little stapler. How cute is this? So I can staple my little sheets together or any little notes that we get. Then I have a couple of little binder clips as well. So all of that lives in this first little case. And then also in that same little pouch back here, I have another set, slightly different color, but very similar. This one's more purplish, I think. Transparent sticky notes on the inside, Broken Chapter Society. So it's kind of similar. It's almost like the same exact as this one. And then I have some glaze, just like a little lip oil in here as well. So that all lives in that first pouch. Then I have another little case here that has crown paperclip and a bunch of different types of page flags for when I'm annotating, as well as some paper page flags. And then I also have some printed pictures here from the Canon Ivy that I haven't used yet. So those kind of waiting to be used. In that same little pouch, I have a Tombow Mono correction tape. I have a glasses cleaner or screen cleaner. I did used to also have cloth in here, but it got moved to my desk, so I need to put it back in. So that cloth typically lives in there, or it can go in the case as well. Then I have some glue runner, and this is another Daiso purchase, but it's basically a hole punch of just a single hole punch, which I use that when I am adding my note cards to my ring for my plot. This latest book, I have not been plotting with rings, so I could probably take that out for the time being, but it just kind of lives in there. Hopefully all this will fit back in. Sometimes they move around. Then you have really what is a very large central spot, but because I have the pockets so packed with things, it's hard to fit as much in the center as you would otherwise, but I have tons of things in here regardless. So like I said, I do have some in-ear headphones. These are from Soundcore. And I love this one because you can also have this up like that and it becomes like a little stand for your phone. Like, how cute is that? So you could use it for this and you could like watch a little YouTube video or something. I think it's so cute. And these I got, I think, on Black Friday deal. And I don't often wear in-ear or in-ear headphones. I like the over-the-ear headphones, but when I'm out, I don't always have room to take my over-the-ear headphones with me. So I keep these in there and I try to remember to keep them charged. Sometimes I'll stuff them in with the little mini reader, and sometimes I'll just put them on the side here, depending on the pins that I'm using. I have a couple of washi tapes in here. Something else that I have done in the past, if I want to take a bunch of washi tapes with me, is because you have this little ring, you can get a little utility ring or a book ring if you want, and you can put all the washi tapes on the ring and then attach the ring to the side so that they're outside. But again, it does make this whole thing a little bulkier. Another option that I have considered is if I want to take more washi tapes, I could just take something like the Broken Chapter Society card, any little gift card or anything like that, and it would fit into this little case. So I could just make a washi sampler and I could do 2 or 3 of them and fit them into the case. And that way I don't have to take the rolls, which are sometimes a little bit more difficult to carry. So if I were going to do a lot of planning or go out to like a planner meetup, I probably would get more washi tape than just 1 or 2. And then also this sort of open center part is where I tend to keep any larger pens. Lately, this has been my obsession are these little Sharpie S Note dual tips. So these are just highlighters and or markers, but they have the chisel tip on one end and then the other end is a bullet tip. And I love the colors of these, particularly I've been doing this sort of like red, blue, and lime green for some reason. This has just been really appealing to me. But there's also a pretty purple and a blue and the pink. I feel like there's another pink than this, like a lighter pink that I just don't have with me, but lots of pretty colors. And I like to use these in my annotating or my notes. Like if I am currently listening to a podcast or reading a book, or I am taking notes from a course, I like to have different colors to highlight my notes. So I've got these that have been kind of living in here for a little bit with the washi tape on the side. However, you can also fit Tombow dual brush pens. These are considerably longer than a normal pen, like by 1.5 times, but they do fit in here. But if I were using these, which I often will use for my plotting, I would probably move the headphones and the washi tape out so that they can fit nicely on the inside. And the truth is you could still fit both sets of pins. Like I could fit all of this in here, but then it starts to get a little bulky. And then when I go out, I have to pull everything out to find the right pin. So you can definitely stuff it, but do you want to? I don't know. It depends on your use case at the moment. But you could also, if you wanted to have these in the back, like I've seen people that have taken any kind of markers that have clips and put them along the back here. So I think that would also be a good solution if you wanted to have more pens or markers that you take with you, because they will all fit along this back section around the Velcro. But like I mentioned, the reason that I don't currently have it like that is because the inside is so stuffed that I think that if I put all of these on the outside and had the inside really stuffed, that it's just going to be so bulky that everything's going to fall out and be uncomfortable. So probably if I were to do that, which looks so cute, to be honest, I would take some of these other things like the cases out so that I could just only have maybe a couple of things. And I think that that would fit nicely. It's just when you have all of these things, and to be honest, if I were doing annotating, I probably wouldn't need all of this stuff anyway. Like I don't need staplers with me at all times. So it can really come in and out to do what you want with it. So those could easily come out and I could just take like a single page flag and stuff them in a corner here. And then I could fit all of the Tombows in the center with my headphones, no problem, and washi tape. And then I've got all of my highlighters on the outside and it's not super bulky. But if I were to have all of that and then also put these cases in, I feel like it just starts to get too wide and then it doesn't fit nicely into my backpack. But for now, that is how I have this set up. I will also say that I have been using this Fomemo printer quite a bit lately. And so this does also fit nicely in here if you take some of the other things out. So if I were to take the Canon Ivy out and this other thing out, there's plenty of room to put this on top here. I don't think it'll fit into, no, it's not going to fit into the pocket, but it will nicely fit over here. So there's a lot of options. It is really versatile and it's one of my favorite purchases I've ever made. And I love to just carry this around the house with me when I'm crafting or plotting or planning. And I also, another thing that will fit in here that I carry around with me a lot is this little planner Kate section of, or binder of black and white icons. So this all got purchased separately, but these icons are probably the number one thing I use in my planning. So in that example, if I were using this out to go do my planning, I probably would take all these center things out and then this entire booklet fits in here. You can fit tons of stickers and other things like that in here, but it would be difficult to fit this and the printer, but I could fit this, my little miniature player, MP3 player, and my Canon Ivy. And another thing that I do often put in here is a pair of scissors, but I don't have them in here now because Evie does like to play through my stuff. She's 6 years old, so she's not as susceptible to like doing bad things with scissors as maybe she was when she was 3, but she still is not super responsible with really sharp scissors. So when I'm using them, I will just put them in this center pouch, or I will just shove them into one of these back pouches. But I don't keep them in there all the time because I know that she would have at it. And who knows, cut her hair, cut my stickers, who knows what she would do with them. But that is a good look at my Delfonics Utility Pouch in medium in this dusty rose color. If I can find it online on Amazon or JetPens or wherever, I will link it for you below, along with as many of the supplies as I can find for you. But let me know what you keep in your pen pouch if you enjoyed walkthroughs like this, and I will see you guys in my next video. All right, love you guys. Bye.